Hi, Gilbert. Thanks so much for joining this conversation about Northwest Gilbert's redevelopment efforts. My name is Amanda Elliott, and I serve as the Redevelopment Program Manager. My phone number and email are listed here in case you have any questions. It is also located on the website. Across the United States, there's many examples of the rise and fall of great American cities. In Gilbert, we continually utilize data in order to monitor areas to ensure that we stem the cycle of decline. We also use a number of terms for redevelopment. We also use revitalization and reinvestment. Decline affects residential neighborhoods. It affects employment areas, job opportunities, educational offerings, and quality of life. This picture is an image of a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood, in a cycle of decline. But it's not always apparent to the naked eye, such as a shuttered strip mall. We also look at data related to absentee owners, migration of businesses. So this is businesses that may be in an area of Gilbert that leave that area, whether to go to another portion of Gilbert or outside of Gilbert. We look at lack of reinvestment or vacant or abandoned buildings, declining school enrollments, decrease in property values, increasing foreclosure rates, increasing tax delinquencies, and increasing crime. All of these factors help us monitor Gilbert as a whole to, again, look for those potential cycles of decline and stem them as we can. We do this because we know, just like any community, there are aging portions or mature areas of our community. By stemming the cycle of decline with redevelopment, reinvestment, and revitalization, we convene the community to encourage reinvestment. We also look at providing an equitability of resources across our 72 square miles. And in Northwest in particular, we have a number of science, technology, engineering, and math related occupations and employers that provide high wage jobs to our citizens. This means that our citizens have an opportunity to live where they work. And, if you think of it in commuting times, if you're able to live where you work, you are able to then, make your kids' baseball games or, be at a meeting for your faith-based institution on a weekday. We think of revitalization not as decline, but as embracing possibilities. We do this by utilizing a unified vision developed by the community that improves infrastructure, enhances quality of life, retains property values, encourages reinvestment, and attracts development. We have one example, the Heritage District, which is a designated redevelopment area. It has a community-driven vision. You'll notice that downtown is uniquely Gilbert, so it has a proven commitment to character. We've seen a reduction in neglect, increased property values, increased sales tax revenue generation. Again, this is really important for our citizens as it helps offset some of the costs that we provide towards things like our public safety and our parks. And we also have seen increased reinvestment. As we think about Northwest Gilbert, though, Northwest Gilbert is different from the Heritage District. The Heritage District is our community living room and acts as an entertainment district. Northwest Gilbert is unique, again, in the sense of its residential neighborhoods and employment that is located in there. So we're not looking to mirror the Heritage District, but to utilize the tools that have helped ensure it remains a vibrant place. Northwest Gilbert is essentially the area that is currently thatched in gold in this slide. It was drawn this way because it is a contiguous area of employment. And as we looked at this area, you'll notice that the Heritage District is not included again because it has its own redevelopment area, but we also are looking at data and trends outside of that growth area. We have been meeting with council for over 10 years, providing data related to this area and needs that it may see. And so in January, we presented to council at a study session, and council provided the direction to move forward with a redevelopment area for Northwest Gilbert. We've had a website in place. This is gilbertaz.gov/NW Gilbert, where residents and businesses can receive information regarding this particular project. We also contracted with the Urban Land Institute at the direction of council. So council had said we would really like to understand, what what does the business community ultimately say it will take for reinvestment to occur? So the Urban Land Institute brought together a number of disciplines through the Arizona Technical Assistance Panel to help us really understand what we would need in order to encourage reinvestment in this area. We have had a lot of outreach over the last 10 years, including surveys, public open houses. We've done open office hours. We've even done employment walks with our chamber where we have hundreds of volunteers that go from business to business in Northwest Gilbert, surveying them live, again, to continually provide data related to revitalization and needs. We've also had an external stakeholder committee that is comprised of the groups you see here. So this group acts as a cross-section for us to help really discuss, the findings that we're seeing, the data that we're seeing, and help provide some guidance on what would be beneficial in order to encourage that redevelopment and reinvestment. We held a virtual public open house with 147 attendees, and we asked, when you think about revitalizing Northwest Gilbert, what is the one word that comes to mind? We were, really excited about the words because these are very hopeful words: improvement, change, new opportunity. And that is exactly how we see redevelopment and revitalization. We had an interactive map, and this map is now up online again, where people could pin different things that they felt we needed assistance with. We also asked, what are your top 5 areas that you want us to focus on? And they said increasing visual appeal, solving for traffic and congestion, maintenance and upkeep of area, increasing safety, and attracting business. So again, we looked at Northwest Gilbert, this gold thatched area, and the areas around it to really start pulling together some data related to Gilbert's oldest and most mature portion of the community. There are some really great things that are happening in Northwest Gilbert. We know that this is the largest employment area, so it has 20% of the employment across the 72 square miles of town. It has a low vacancy rate of 4.5%. Again, we'd previously mentioned that this is the leading area for science, technology, engineering, and math-related occupations and employers. We do have a large area of industrial product. So for those of us who like to shop online in particular, these are our manufacturing and then also those distribution and warehousing areas. And we have unique attractions like Arizona Wilderness, who was named one of the top 10 places to stop off of the I-10 freeway. But we also know that there's some challenges that we've been noticing through data over the last 10 years. There's aging infrastructure. We are responding to some of that infrastructure already through a voter-approved infrastructure bond. We know that there are absentee owners, some vacant infill sites that are challenging to develop. All of these signs are telling us that this area is ready for revitalization. And one thing that we've heard time and time again as we meet with not only the businesses, but the residents, that this area really has no defined character. So people don't know, if they're in Mesa to the north or if they're in Chandler to the west. And so that's just something that we're looking at as well as we consider, how do we make this uniquely Gilbert? The state designates a redevelopment area and it provides a number of factors that we're required to look at. It does not state that we have to have all of these factors, but that we have a combination of them that suggests that there are some areas in need of assistance for revitalization and redevelopment. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to just talk about a couple. So one of them is dominance of defective or inadequate street layout. This is really an issue that happens in all cities across the U.S. So as an area, is developed for one particular use and those uses change over time, you start to see competing priorities. So in this case, you can see in this image, you have on-street parking that is utilized primarily for the workers in this particular industrial area, but then it's also constrained because you have these semi-trucks that need not only turning radius, but the ability to move product in and out of their warehousing or manufacturing distribution facilities. We look at conditions that endanger life or property. So for example, an abandoned building that has sat vacant for a considerable amount of time and starts to see some deterioration. Those are, considerations for, not only crime, but potential fire hazards. This area does have, according to the Maricopa County Assessor, the highest area for tax or special assessment delinquencies, and the highest area that we have issues with title, as well as foreclosures. We also look at faulty lot layout. So these are parcels, small parcels, where an owner said, I want to develop this particular parcel, but I'm really constrained by the requirements for development. We look at deterioration of site or other improvements. So these are neglect factors. These can happen in employment areas or residential areas where you start to see, graffiti happening, or, a large amount of weeds, dead vegetation. And then we think of it as the broken window effect. So in a neighborhood, whether it's commercial or industrial or residential, when you have a broken window that is not fixed, you start to see more broken windows pop up. So as we look at Northwest Gilbert's revitalization, again, we showed you that gold thatched area. It is located here in blue in this map. We will again note that the Heritage District is not included in this consideration because it is its own redevelopment area. But as we talked to council and shared the data, they asked us to look at a couple of different options. Should we look at revitalization efforts focused all the way to the connect red-orange boundary, or do we even look all the way out to the Lindsay boundary? And so we utilize data to help us with some of these decisions. We look at parcels built by year. So in this particular map, you can see those yellow and orange parcels were built before 1990 and 1980. We look at calls for service. So these are those neglect factors, things that people are calling the city to assist with. And just to make this a little clearer, we created a heat map of these. You can see exactly where those calls for service regarding neglect factors are happening. We also look at vacant parcels. This helps us just understand, where are parcels that are not developed in the community, because this helps us understand what will be revitalized or reinvested in as opposed to a net new product. And then we also looked at HOA and non-HOA neighborhoods to help us, again, understand, where are those neglect factors happening and how can we assist both our HOA and non-HOA neighborhoods alike. Again, we really think of this effort as embracing possibilities. And so we most recently were out at the Gilbert Farmers Market interacting with people, and Gilbert had a free Taco Tuesday event, and we asked about those priorities for redevelopment. And we also have been looking at, what are some of the things that inspire us, things that we could do with a redevelopment overlay that would really help both business and residential. So for business, there's a number of things that a redevelopment overlay would allow. It would help us put together facade improvement programs. Again, we hear from you that you'd really like, some specific businesses attracted to your neighborhood shopping centers. These facade improvement programs can assist with that. Good neighbor grants are things where a small business owner opens a shop in a particular building, but the building is not up to code, so those grants can help with that. We already have a grass removal rebates program for non-residential customers, so this is an opportunity to look at whether or not we should expand a project of that nature. Pop-up on Main is looking at vacant buildings and how you can activate them with temporary retail or art. Streamlining building demolition, again, those vacant buildings that are in a state of disarray that may endanger life or property, and certainly looking at things like infill sites. And then we can look at how other communities have done this through things like corridors of opportunity, and looking at, kind of a neighborhood by neighborhood approach to redevelopment. So we're very inspired by all of these and are opportunities for us. But we also know that there's residential opportunities as well. A number of our surrounding communities have a tool lending trailer, so tools can be very expensive to invest in. So the tool lending trailer is something that cities offer for property owners or renters to essentially reserve for the weekend. And this has everything from, yard work, home repair, painting tools. We currently have a block wall repair program, a paint program, and an emergency home repair program. So we would look at how we can continue to utilize that in reinvesting in Gilbert. And then, of course, there's opportunities for neighborhood grants, which can be both HOA and non-HOA neighborhoods to impart art, to do traffic calming, xeriscape, and even improving monument signage and landscaping around that monument sign. Again, those are all examples of things that we are inspired by and could potentially be tools that we would use if we were to designate a redevelopment area. We also looked at case studies. So for business, you've got the Tin City picture up in the upper left and the picture in the lower right, both industrial areas that were activated in different ways. So you think of industrial areas that are typically not active on weekends. How can we utilize those spaces with property owners to just generate activity in them, particularly for neighborhoods? Tin City is a really interesting example because they were able to bring different types of food and beverage options within their industrial area, and we're already seeing that happening with Arizona Wilderness and their commitment to Northwest Gilbert and partnering with companies like Hayden Flour, who's also in Northwest, and Barrio Bread. We also looked at examples where neighborhood strip centers were updated to become more community gathering spaces. So that's the middle picture and the lower right. It's hard to envision, those as strip centers, but they were, and they became these beautiful gathering, walkable environments for the neighbors. And then how can we activate, art to really, again, just create a beautiful, vibrant Gilbert? And then we look at redevelopment case studies for residential. On the right, you have a picture of Arcadia. Arcadia had a redevelopment overlay and has had a plan in place. And we hear all of the time about how great of an area Arcadia is and all of the reinvestment that has happened there. And then the left is Knoll Gardens in Tempe. This neighborhood saw a number of businesses actually come be attracted right around its neighborhood, including a Starbucks, a Salad and Go, and an In-N-Out Burger, and that helped nearly double the property values in the area. So the designation of a redevelopment area demonstrates that the town is committing to improving the designated area. That designation is a period of 10 years, and then it sunsets. No property is tied to this designation, so if you were to pull your title, you won't see this designation as part of it. What it does do is it provides the town a number of tools through the state that help encourage that reinvestment. So we're going to ask you in the form to tell us where you think we should focus our efforts. We have the Northwest Employment Growth Area. Again, this was a contiguous area of employment with one residential neighborhood. It was drawn kind of in these boundaries in order to show how employment was joined and related, and it was later approved in the voter adopted general plan for 2020. And it is a growth area, meaning that it supports the growth of those employment corridor. It's primarily focused on industrial office. It has some commercial. It is our smallest boundary. Again, we have 10 years to impart these tools and tactics in order to encourage reinvestment. We know that this boundary helps us with the regional collaboration, again with Mesa to the north, who has some redevelopment happening along that baseline corridor, and Chandler to the west, who also has redevelopment and revitalization happening along its border. This particular boundary is 3.37 square miles out of the 72 square mile community. This is the Northwest Connect area, so it would encompass the growth area. It does create better opportunities for transitions around the Heritage District and some of the transitions between residential and the industrial areas. it starts to encompass some of those aging commercial centers that support neighborhoods, and so helps us take a look at how we can work with property owners to revitalize those. We know that there's HOAs and non-HOAs in here like that will likely benefit from the redevelopment offerings. And then we also know that this area has, again, looking at that heat map, those higher calls for service, so how we can help support that. And this is 10.66 square miles. And then we looked at the Lindsay boundary, and we looked at this because there were a number of non-HOA neighborhoods, really related to that, those neglect factors that we wanted to look at. Again, it encompasses then, the employment growth area and the connect boundary. We know that there's maybe some more opportunities for our federal community development block grant funds to be utilized. And this area would provide for some really unique looks at our regional trail connectivity. And this boundary is 12.99 square miles. We are in the beginning of this boundary process, and we're really seeking all of your feedback and input to help us define where we should focus our efforts. Once we've defined a boundary, we will bring that forth again to the public, to our external stakeholder committee, our internal steering committee, commissions, our chamber, and we'll provide ultimately a recommendation to council based on all of the input and the data, and council will make a decision on adopting a boundary. We have some postcards. We're happy to get these out to you, but really want you to share the word about revitalization of Northwest Gilbert and continue to share your thoughts with us as we go through this process. And post this presentation, there is an online form we're asking you to fill out to tell us where we should focus our efforts, what you're excited about, areas that you may be concerned about, and certainly any questions you may have. And then we also have an online map that you had seen earlier. That online map is live and provides opportunities to pin to the map areas that you feel we should look at for revitalization. And so with that, I just thank you all for your feedback. We can't do this without you. We want to continue to engage and really understand the community's needs and wants, and just ensure that Gilbert remains a vibrant place to live, work, and play. So with that, thank you all.